Welcome to the Dirttime channel. I'm Alan Halcon.
I'm Christopher Nerigesh.
Christopher, we were talking earlier and you had something that occurred. It wasn't a situation, but it was a conversation that occurred with one of your students in regard to bugging out.
Well,
I found quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, it was. This one particular woman wanted to know, what should I carry if I have to evacuate my home? And I said,
It sounds like a loaded question.
well, the thing was, I said, why are you asking that first? In other words, what is the scenario? You know, what is the situation where you have to evacuate? And she said, well, I have to evacuate. I said, okay, so under what circumstances? In other words, these things are not, you look up in the encyclopedia for the answer. I mean, most of these survival skills, you're thinking on your feet, you're trying to evaluate a situation, and out of 100 choices, you're trying to make the best choice.
Right.
Under all circumstances, and circumstances change. So what I was trying to get her to tell me was, where do you live? Do you know your neighbors? Have you filled up your home with any supplies? Do you know where your local resources are? Because, believe me, evacuating, if you don't actually have to, is not the best option. You have all your stuff at home. You're familiar with your surroundings. You theoretically should know your neighbors. You know who has what skills.
Now,
okay.
Certain situations you're not going to have a choice because you may be at ground zero.
Yeah, you're underwater. There's a nuclear bomb or whatever. But I was trying to get her to think through that first. Think through the process. I don't want to tell you carry this, this, and this. I want to know what's the situation that you're thinking about. And sort of like through pulling teeth, we finally got to the situation. Well, I have to evacuate. Okay, now I wanted her to think about, do you know your neighbors? Do you know what your skills are? To go through all of that first. Okay, then finally, worst case scenario, you must leave.
Okay.
What are you going to carry? So I got all the students involved and asking them, okay, there's another question. Where are you going? You're going to evacuate. Where are you going?
And how are you getting there?
And and I said to her, now think about it. In a real survival situation, you're not going in a car. If there's a major emergency in the LA basin, because this is where we are, you're not driving away.
All it takes is for one overpass or underpass to be crumbled.
Yeah.
And it's going to block your exit plan.
And so maybe a motorcycle, maybe a bicycle, but most likely if it's a serious situation, you're going on foot. So I asked her, how prepared are you to go on foot? Your footwear, your clothing, that's what you have to think about. So there was no answer, of course. So I encourage everybody, wherever you live.
How did this all come about? I mean, is this because of your stint that you did on Doomsday Preppers? Is this how this whole question spawned? What occurred?
This student had seen that, and because, of course, I am the advocate of evacuating, supposedly.
No, not so much.
She wanted to know what to bring, but it was in a class, and it was the subject was actually tools and weapons, and we were talking about kits, so she wanted to know, well, what should I bring? But again, I'm slow to answer that kind of a question. She didn't know where to go. She didn't know what kind of scenario she might expect. And then I said, also keep in mind, you want to go by yourself, a single woman. You have a firearm, right? And she says, oh, no. Okay, so think about that. So what to bring? So we finally got to the board. Okay, there's no other choice. You have a place that you think you're going to that might be safe. What would you bring? What would you carry? And I said, keep in mind, these big packs, the local thugs, they see a pack, and they're not, those thugs who haven't prepared, they're going to say, hey, I see this guy with a pack, he's got everything I need. So they're going to go after you if you can't defend yourself.
Let's talk about
that. So you don't want to go by yourself. You want to have a group. You want to have people that are your support system.
Right, and let's talk about packs. There's a lot of people out there, myself included at times, we like to carry all this high-speed wazoo tactical-looking packs, but you know what?
Very impressive when you're at a party.
Oh yeah, very impressive. But you're a big target too when you're out there. The best course of action is to go gray. Just turn invisible. Be the bum on the street. I see your pack. Nobody would look at your pack and say, hey, that guy has some really cool stuff in there, but even though you do.
Sometimes I have a lot of stuff in my pockets or my fanny pack, and I have a low profile, so you wouldn't think that I have a lot of gear with me.
No, exactly.
But let's say you get to this worst case scenario. I think most of the people watching this should be able to guess what we're going to say. Like let's list some of the things that you'd have to bring. What's the obvious one?
A knife, a tool, a cutting implement.
A couple of knives. I like to carry this for making tools, but a knife, a pocket knife. I think I've got a Swiss Army knife in my pocket somewhere. Here's, A couple of knives, because it's useful for everything. And what else?
And it doesn't have to be a big Rambo knife. Be a little more discreet in your selection.
Not a Rambo knife?
Oh no, are you good? Oh.
By the way, then we got to fire. Everybody agreed. And then one of the people said, "Oh, your bow and drill and stuff." I said, "What would you carry that for?" The purpose of me teaching you how to use a bow and drill and a hand drill is so you go into the woods with absolutely nothing and you could find it. I would always carry a Bic lighter or a magnesium fire starter because it has so many uses.
I am constantly blown away by that mentality, Christopher.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time the only two round things I want to rub in an emergency to create a fire are road flares.
Right.
And that's the reality. I mean,
that's on my keychain all the time. Magnesium fire
I
starter.
have one of those on my keychain as well, all the time.
The notion of carrying a bow and drill and all that stuff to make a fire in an emergency is ludicrous.
Again, they must have saw that on Doomsday Prepper and thought that's the way you go.
Well, that's true. I did do that for that TV show. Everything you see on TV is a fantasy or an illusion, folks. I mean, anytime you see, especially when Alan's on well, that's another story. Okay, but it is. TV is not real. And anyway, so a fire starter, a knife, what else?
Water.
Okay, everybody brought up water, but water is heavy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't carry all of the water that you
Nope.
need. So if you had planned ahead, thought about the possibility of having to evacuate, what are local water sources?
Right, local water. But what's important here is a proper water container. This one is stainless steel, so you can effectively purify your water by putting this on the fire.
And I could cook the water.
So you don't want a plastic container.
Yeah, and this is just a water filter because you don't know about the purity. You could boil the water or you could pump it through this device.
Now let's talk about water filters and purifiers. There's a big difference between a water filter and a purifier. Just because you have a water filter doesn't mean it's going to get everything out of the water. Moreover,
it should, though, shouldn't it?
No, it will not. Moreover, because it will not. A water filter will the size of the element will not get the smallest of microbes and all that. The other thing is purifiers and water filters, for the most part, it's not really going to get rid of oils and chemical contaminants.
Yeah, these are all for biological contaminants. So if you have stuff in the water, and this is a whole subject unto itself, but you need to, your oils will go to the top. You need to sop them off. You need to let stuff settle. You need to strain it. There's a lot of things you can do.
Well, what's important with collection of water is know where you're collecting the water from. Don't look to the obvious sources. Look to sources that are not so obvious. Dude has talked about this. Go up into the fork of trees.
Dude has talked about this.
Go up on a rooftop or something like that where you have pools of water storing. Don't get in the gutter.
Okay, so you need water, obviously. You can only carry so much. A knife, a fire starter. You really had to rely on your own wits. You might have to have some kind of a first aid kit. Everybody came up with twine and rope of some sort because that comes in handy for a million things. So we ended up making a list of about 20 things for emergency bugging out, for an emergency having to rely on your immediate needs
I'm
for your pack.
I'm gonna go against the grain here a little bit, and I know there's gonna be some people out there that aren't necessarily.
What grain are you going against?
Aren't necessarily gonna like what I'm about to say, and you guys can what if this. You guys can what if this today to death. If weight was an issue,
okay,
I would not carry cordage.
It's not that heavy.
No. If I was to select the top 5 or 6 items,
I'm talking like a spool of twine, or even a little spool of parachute cord. It comes in handy. You would carry it. You would actually carry it.
It's not.
Disregard his if.
No,
you would carry it.
It's not on my priority list of carrying. If they said, here's the stuff.
Just a question. Has Dude approved your list?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
I'm telling you what
okay.
I listen. I have
he would
enough.
carry it.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay,
So
moving along, we would have probably some kind of a first aid kit that you understand the contents of. Twine, maybe you're not. No, but here's the point.
Okay, what would you have in your first aid kit?
Well, see, we're going to talk about that in the next little.
No, but
here.
we're going to talk about.
I carry Band-Aids, and I carry some kind of a disinfectant, and I carry some kind of a gauze. It's a small first aid kit.
Right.
And I keep adding and I keep subtracting.
Yeah. See, so all I would carry is some sort of antibacterial, like Neosporin or something like that. I don't need the Band-Aids. I carry duct tape. I don't need a lot of the stuff in a basic first aid kit.
Yeah. But to the average person, when they're thinking, and they may be fearfully thinking about going out and they're on their own, injuries may happen.
Okay.
And Band-Aids will probably take care of most of the common things.
Right. And so will duct tape.
Well, this is true. This
So,
is true. Duct tape has multiple uses.
I have Neosporin, and you know what? I carry a roll of duct tape, and you know what? Again, this is one of those situations where people are gonna, put a bunch of dislikes. I quite frankly don't care. I'm not impressed.
Wow, listen to that. Now, parents, just think about that. Alan is saying you get to duct tape your children up when they have little cuts.
No, I didn't
when they
think.
have
No,
cuts
I
and
didn't think
bruises.
about that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Now
They're
that
gonna
you
say,
mention,
they're going to say Alan is a nut.
no, you know what, Christopher? Here's the deal with some of the stuff. Everything from the cordage to you have to have sufficient trust in your skills.
This is true. The more you know, the less kind of junk you need
So
to carry.
I can think of 1,000 different things right now that I could use instead of cordage if I had to.
Okay, so can I. So the point of our listing and thinking this through is that everyone's skills, everyone's situation
Is going to
is
determine.
different. That you may have children, you may have elderly people. Whatever you're doing is going to determine your list. Don't go by things that you read in the books. Those give you some good ideas. And the fact that Alan doesn't like cordage doesn't mean you shouldn't carry
I
it.
didn't say I didn't like cordage. Oh, I never said I
Okay,
didn't
he
like
said that
cordage.
because of the weight, he wouldn't
No,
carry it.
I said weight being an issue, and it being if you had these 5 items that you have to carry, would cordage be one
I
of
think
them?
it would be one of mine, yeah.
Well, but it wouldn't be one of mine because I could think of other things that I'd rather carry if given only a 5-item list.
That-
Now, for instance, let me ask you this:
Okay.
did cavemen never carry their 550 with them?
That's a...
Thank you. That my point proven.
Okay. I think we've covered this, haven't we?
Pretty good.
All right.
I'm Alan Helicon, Christopher Nurgish. We'll see you next time on Dirttime.com.